Welcome to Conversations with Beth, where curiosity meets connection. I'm Beth Lees, and I'm a lifelong spiritual explorer, passionista, and a lover of deep, meaningful conversations. Um, this podcast is all about getting to know amazing people doing wonderful things in the world in a fun and intimate way using provocative questions, interesting questions that will spark laughter, insights, and some holy shift moments, which is when your perspective suddenly changes. So sit back, relax, open your heart, and let's dive into some soulful conversation. I am super excited to uh, See, this is our first one, and I'm already screwing up. All right. But it's good because I'm being authentic. Today, I have the absolute pleasure of sitting down with Sharon Oberst DeFala, who brings warmth and wisdom to the legal world. Sharon isn't your typical attorney. She is a divorce attorney with a big heart. She guides families through life's big transitions with compassion and grace. And she practices family law, estate planning, and small business law in her hometown of Norwalk, Connecticut, where law is truly a family affair. Her father is an attorney at the Oberst law firm, and her mother keeps everything running as office manager. But here's what really makes Sharon shine. It's her community spirit and her radiant energy, which have earned her the nickname Sunshine Daydream. And trust me, that name fits. She's all about lifting others up and making a difference in the world. And I can't wait to dive into her world and her wisdom. So, Sharon, welcome.
Thank you, sweetheart. I'm happy to be here.
Woohoo! You're one of my favorite people in the world,
Uh,
and you are um, bringing me to this new place of diving into this podcast arena. Um, what I would love to know is what's the biggest misconception people have about divorce?
wow, that's a great first question. I love it.
Well, thank you.
I feel like the first thing people hear when they hear the word divorce is devastation. I think they confuse it with destruction of their relationships, their assets, their sense of self, their centeredness, just a path of ashes and hatred and anger. And I'm not saying that isn't a possibility. That exists. We've read every book and seen every movie and TV series on that model. But in my experience, I've been practicing law for 33 years. I've never once had that experience. I've never My clients have never once had that experience.
That's amazing.
Well, thank you. The reason the laws were created, the reason divorce became a legality, which wasn't at the same time that marriage became a legality. Divorce was created in order to improve people's lives,
Wow.
right? Like
I
it's
love that perspective. That is a holy shift moment.
but it's that's I feel like the shift came after, and that this is kind of a reversion to truth. Not every marriage is the right marriage. Not every partner stays the same, or some partners stay the same too much. Not every relationship was designed to last that many decades. And there has to be a humane and intelligent exit strategy available. It can't just be that when we don't get along with our spouses anymore, we murder them. That's why divorce was created.
Oh, right. That would not be good.
A mess. So I think that's the biggest misconception, is that I think people don't understand divorce as the gift that it is. They think of it as something to fear.
Yeah, so it's kind of like divorce is a beginning rather than an ending.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. So many of my clients have come to me by choice or accidentally running into them years later and say exactly like, I don't know what I was afraid of. Everything has been better since I stopped being married to that person. And frequently I'll say to people who are just scared and bereft and alone and whatever in that moment, I promise you, you're going to be so grateful when this is over. You're going to be better off than when it started. The transition is hard. There's no question it's hard. Every transition is hard, but the outcome leaves people, when done right, in a better position than from where they started.
That's beautiful.
Oh,
It's
it's
it is the thing to remember. I think that's true of all transitions, whether it's divorce or empty nesting or a new job, becoming a solopreneur from after being in corporate, that it's really sometimes it's like that unsettling period that when that friction has to happen in order for the harmony to come afterwards, you know?
yeah,
But
it's
if
a
we can remember while it's happening that this is temporary, that it makes it a lot easier to keep going through the process so that you can get to the other side. And with your fabulous legal help, it makes divorce a lot easier.
well, divorce, yes, and but to your bigger point, if they can come out of their divorce with a bigger perspective on how life works, then everybody's better off. Their children are better off, their eventual grandchildren are better off, right? Like it's it's okay that it isn't what you expected it to be.
Yeah,
It's gonna be better.
I love it. What's the most surprising thing you've learned about love as a divorce attorney?
I don't know. Wait, give me a second. The most I've learned about love. So love is its own, right, interesting and unpackable word. It applies in so many different directions, in so many different relationships, right? Like we use the same word to describe how we feel about sexual partners as we do about our children, right? It's like a broad word.
Yeah.
I think that the commonality of it in all those is compassion and the ability to understand somebody else's wants, needs, whomever they are, as though they were yourself, right? That kind of putting yourself in somebody's shoes, that. And so many times in my practice, I have had the honor to sit in a room with two people who love each other and are divorcing with grace and dignity and compassion, and just don't let any of the other pieces of it permanently interfere. Sure, we get fights, even the most loving people, right?
Yeah.
Married or parent or whatever. Sure, we get fights, but it doesn't have to be in place of the entire process. It's just part of it.
And sometimes really loving somebody is letting them go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And wishing them the best.
Yeah. I love that. So you work in a family-run law firm. How has that shaped your perspective on relationships and legacy?
Okay, so first I have to say, I'm grateful every day that I have the good fortune to work with the people I work with. My father is smart and funny and just great at what he does, and continues to learn and grow and get better at it. So it's a great model for me. I work with people who I know have my back and whose back I always have. And it's like the opposite of any corporate world I ever heard of. Ever been there personally. Um, and that has to influence how we do our work. Every person who comes to us, it's as though they're coming to our family home. They're
Wow.
right. They're not somebody we're meeting on a street. Nice to meet you. Night. Goodbye. It's somebody who's trusting us, whether they're trusting me and meet my parents ancillary or the opposite way around. They're ours now.
Right.
And if I do something inappropriate, wrong, make big mistakes, whatever happens, guess who's going to also suffer? My own parents.
Ouch. No pressure.
It's a gift in so many ways, but in that it makes each of us really think through what we're doing and really look at the long term. And every client we work with as though it was somebody from our family because it's somebody within our family.
That's beautiful. I love that. What's the most powerful lesson a client has taught you?
Mm. So many. Oh my gosh. They're so generous with their wisdom. It's hard to I'm remembering this woman who I've worked with for a couple of years. She has a business that I work with her on. She has a couple of businesses. And in addition to that, she's an ER nurse. And when we were doing her documents for her estate plan, she was very cautious about how we wrote her healthcare proxy and her living will. She said, husbands pull the plug really fast, wives take too long. Somewhere between the two is the right moment.
Wow. That's a powerful life lesson.
So I try to
That's
keep that wisdom along, right? I never come out and say I accuse anybody, but you really want to be detailed about what it is your expectations are with your healthcare proxy or your living will.
yeah, and a healthcare proxy and a living will are super important documents to have. What do you think the percentage is of people who have them?
Oh, I don't even have a guess. Oh, I presume it's a low percentage. People say things like,
I mean, we're all going to die. Don't we all know that?
"Yes,
Like,
not yet. I'll wait till I need it."
too late.
Or I looked something up online, or my adult child looked up something online, and I printed it out, and then I signed it, or I didn't sign it, or I scribbled on it. And oh, good, I'm glad you did that, but what good do you think it did you? So let's say this, the percentage of people who have a healthcare proxy and a living will is lower than the percentage of people who believe they have one.
What do you think keeps people from doing it?
Oh my gosh, nobody. To me, even the greatest guru you ever meet, nobody loves their mortality.
I don't know. Like, I mean, I have personal experience of having a husband who had a life challenging illness and who was waiting for a liver transplant for 2.5 years. And so we had a while to think about that and to put that stuff in place and realizing the importance of it. But I'm always amazed at people that don't have any of that. People that I think of as smart and like realistic and like know how these things can happen, that they don't have those in place.
It's so interesting. A lot of times people think that writing my will is what will kill me. Once I do that, then the universe is going to know I'm ready and take me, right? And what's even crazier is how often people leave having signed their documents and say, now I feel relieved. Now I feel a sense of peace. Like, why wouldn't you want that instead of the anxiety?
Exactly. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Um, I encourage everybody to go do that. And Sharon is awesome. She's super easy to talk to, as you can see. So my action plan for, and initiative for you is to call Sharon and do that.
Yeah.
Um,
Wait,
how do you keep the lightness when dealing with people going through emotionally heavy times?
I'm sorry, I'm backtracking for 1 second.
Oh yeah,
I'm only licensed in Connecticut. If anybody who's watching this isn't in Connecticut, they should go to whomever they trust and do their estate plans. They're doing their children and their grandchildren and their loved ones the biggest favor they can. Sorry.
that is true. And thank you for backtracking. All right, Sunshine Daydream. How do you keep the lightness when dealing with such heavy emotional issues?
I don't always. Honestly, Beth, there are times when we're just sitting in a room crying together. It's okay, right? People have to go through what they have to go through, or they're not going to get out the other side of it. So sometimes we don't. And I believe that by letting that be true is how we get to the other side. And so my receptionist or assistant here, she said, I don't know. There was one time I said, if you don't mind, always put the tissue box in the middle of the table because when someone's crying, me running around the room fumfering for it doesn't feel present. She didn't know that people cry in my office because we always leave laughing.
Well, that's a testimony to you.
Not funny. We get through it, and then however long it takes, whatever we need to do, we we come out the other side of it. And I think I think avoiding it would be the mistake.
Yes, I agree. And I love having the tissue box in the middle of the table because I find I've done lots of therapy over the years, and I have found that when and I take this into my own practice too, when people hand you a tissue, it's kind of like stopping that flow of emotion, right? And so, but if the tissue box is right there, you can pick up that tissue and wipe your tears away and do what you need to do, but without stopping that flow, right? Because that's part of the healing journey, right?
Right. You're not trying to shut them down, and you don't want them to feel unprotected.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Um, if you weren't afraid, what would you do?
I guess that question asked me to find what I'm afraid of.
Yeah. Are you afraid of anything?
I'm trying to think. So here's the thing. I'm probably afraid of a lot of things. I don't remember the last time I said I'm too afraid to do that.
That is a beautiful thing.
I'm not saying I haven't or I won't again. It's so funny. I'll tell you this story. So, Lauren Mercaldi is my business coach. And the first time I ever heard her speak at an event, she used the word self-limiting beliefs, the phrase self-limiting beliefs, talking about whatever she was talking about. And I thought to myself in that moment, I'm so glad I don't have those.
I'm so glad you thought you didn't have those.
Start working with her and we're going through what we're going through. And I told you I have an assistant who works here. I never had an assistant. And when Lauren suggested that my work would benefit from me having somebody to do some of the less attorney necessary work, I said, oh, I can't hire anybody to work for me. I'm a terrible manager.
Ding, ding, ding.
So they're in there. I'm sure they're in there.
But you don't know about them, so that's good. What's your recipe for life?
Oh, so let me say thank you to you. I feel like in the 5 years that I have been a member of your tribe, of your connection of healers and holistic thinkers, my ability to be present and authentic and curious have all just grown and grown. And I think that those are absolutely the keys to not only my whatever in my job, but to how one lives.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. What's one book that you'd recommend to people?
Mm, How do you narrow that? Okay, so I just finished reading a book called Dignity, trying to remember the author's name. And it's about every transaction starts from recognizing each other's dignity, each other's, by virtue of the fact that you are alive, you have dignity. We can disagree about choices you make, decisions you make, how you run your life, but just the humanity, the dignity of one human being to another is shockingly often forgotten.
Yes.
So
I'm
It's
gonna I'll look up that book and share the author and a link to that. Um, what's one question you wished that I would have asked you?
mm, um trying to think. I guess the only things that are coming to my head are like superficial things.
Well, okay.
Favorite restaurants, where I get my hair done.
What is your favorite restaurant?
Do you ever go to Gabriel's in Westport?
No, but I should. Is that in Sconset Square?
No, it's in Playhouse Square. It's next to the Playhouse.
Yes, Playhouse Square. No, I have not.
Oh, let's go there.
Let's go.
It's a steakhouse. I don't eat steak. It's an Italian place. I get enough Italian. Here's what I love about it. Two things. One is they made this outdoor patio into an indoor outdoor space, which is one of the most gorgeous spaces I've ever seen in my life, with chandeliers and sconces. Like, it's gorgeous. Number one. And number two, it's the only place I know where one can still get a freshly made souffle. You order it at the beginning of your meal and they serve it at the end of your meal.
Wow, that's a great tip. And I spend a lot of time with you, and I didn't know that.
Yeah, now we have a next favorite place to go.
Awesome. Um, all right, well then I need to know what's one movie that you'd recommend?
Ooh. Mm. I had my children watch with me and they said it was not as good as I thought it was. But have you ever watched Harold and Maude?
Yes, I love that movie.
For that one scene, my kids love the movie, but the one scene doesn't it's age well, for lack of a better phrase.
And that movie's got to be over 30 years old, I would think.
I think so. Yeah, maybe even more than that. But it's such a great story about embracing life and embracing everything that life has to offer and staying young and connected and vital, no matter what calendar age you are, and how important that is.
And about love,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? It's about love. Okay, we're gonna wrap it up, but my last question is where can listeners find you?
Oh, thank you for asking. So on the internet, my law office website is oberstlaw.com, Oberstlaw, oberstlaw.com. I also have a blog called Love Your Divorce, love-your-divorce.com, where I don't blog very regularly, but the archives of it have a lot of my insights into how to avoid the fears and the worst case scenario of divorce.
How awesome. Look at what I learned by interviewing you. I didn't know you had a blog. I highly recommend y'all uh, talk to your friends and interview your friends. You can find out a lot of information. Thank you so much, Sharon, for being my first guest on this podcast. I adore you. I love you. You are doing amazing things in the world, and you are bringing so much warmth and wisdom. So,
Thank you, sweetheart. This was great.
thank you. All right, we're out. Enjoy your day and stay tuned for more.
Did you turn off the recording?
Not yet. I'm looking for the button.